Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lesson 2, Addressing Pronunciation Problems. Today, we're going to focus on mastering your English pronunciation. In this session, we'll explore common pronunciation challenges and practical tips to overcome them. I'm excited to guide you through this journey to improve your speaking skills. Let's get started and make learning fun and effective. Easy for the listener. When we speak clearly and confidently, it's much easier for our audience to understand us. Remember, understandable communication often leads to a high score in effective speaking. Clarity is key. If your message is clear, your listeners will stay engaged and grasp your ideas better. So why does pronunciation matter? Well, proper pronunciation ensures that your words are understood correctly, reducing confusion. It helps you convey your message with precision and confidence. Keep in mind, the overall goal of this presentation is to improve your communication skills, and clear pronunciation is a fundamental part of that. So, let's focus on making our speech as clear as possible to connect better with our listeners. Let's take a closer look at the difference between connect stamp and collect stamps. When we talk about band 7 to 9, the key is effortless understanding. This means that learners at this level can grasp the concepts easily without needing extra clues or hints. They can understand the meaning straight away. On the other hand, band 5 to 6 learners need some context clues. They might understand the general idea, but require additional hints or background information to fully grasp the meaning. Now, the band score gap highlights this difference. It shows us that there's a significant gap between how well higher band learners understand content effortlessly and how much support lower band learners need. Understanding this gap is crucial because it helps us tailor our teaching strategies and materials to support students at all levels. It also ties into the overall theme of making language learning accessible and effective for everyone. Let's take a closer look at some common problems that can arise. You might notice phrases like enspu or stead en insipu. These are examples of typical issues we encounter, often related to miscommunication or misunderstandings. For instance, esndou could point to errors in spelling or pronunciation, while a sxdre hints at extraneous or misplaced sounds. Other examples, such as problem fpr ed o instlem, show how problems can be embedded in the way words are spoken or written, leading to confusion. Sometimes it's about missing parts, like in pro egsndou, which can make the meaning unclear. We also see issues with blending words or sounds, like gs sin mis, which might represent misheard or mispronounced phrases. And then there's then d of st-n in g, highlighting how parts of words can be dropped or jumbled, impacting clarity. Finally, these examples, such as zesndsoug or cinplare, underscore the importance of clear communication. Recognizing these common problems helps us understand where errors often occur and guides us in finding better solutions to improve overall clarity and effectiveness. Let's take a look at this example: ham and cheese versus how much. It might seem simple, but it highlights a really important point. If you can't hear it clearly, you can't say it accurately. This is a perfect segue into the difference between speaking and listening. When we communicate effectively, listening is just as crucial as speaking. If you're not paying close attention, you might miss key details or misunderstand the message. And that can lead to all kinds of miscommunications. So remember, good communication isn't just about what you say, but also about how well you listen. If you want to be understood, you first need to truly hear what others are saying. Now let's take a closer look at vowels and their sounds. Vowels are essential because they form the core of almost every word we speak. There are 5 main vowels in the English alphabet: A, E, I, O, and U. Each of these vowels can produce a variety of sounds, depending on how they're used in different words. This brings us to something we call the vowel challenge. It's all about mastering these different sounds and understanding how they work in context. Because, as you might notice, the same vowel can sound quite different in various words. For example, the in cat versus cake, or the U in cup versus cup. Catching these differences is key to improving pronunciation and listening skills. So, throughout this presentation, we'll focus on recognizing and practicing these vowel sounds. Remember, understanding vowels deeply is fundamental to mastering the overall language skills we aim to develop. Now let's take a closer look at some common minimal pairs that can be tricky for learners. First up, we have pull versus pool. The main difference here is the vowel sound. Pull uses a shorter, more central vowel, while pool has a longer, more rounded vowel. It's a small difference, but it can change the meaning entirely. Next, we have gas versus guess. Again, the vowel sound is the key. In gas, the vowel is short and sharp, whereas in guess, it's more of a diphthong, which can be a bit more challenging for learners to distinguish. Moving on, think versus sync. Notice how the initial consonant sounds are the same, but the ending sounds differ. Think ends with a K sound, while sync ends with a NG sound. Paying attention to these subtle differences helps improve clarity. Then we have snacks versus snakes. Here, the ending sounds are different. S versus S with a long sound in snakes. These small vowel changes can be confusing, but are crucial for correct pronunciation and understanding. Next, bend versus band. The difference is in the vowel sound, short E in bend versus short O in band. Again, a small vowel change that can alter the meaning. Finally, reason versus risen. The tricky part here is the vowel sounds and the ending. Reason has a long E sound, while risen has a short I sound. Also, their endings differ, N versus N with a slight nasalization. To reinforce these differences, I recommend practicing with minimal pairs like these. Repetition and focused listening will help learners hear and produce the subtle vowel and consonant differences accurately. Remember, mastering these pairs is essential for clear communication and reducing misunderstandings. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, these words show us how the schwa, the most common vowel sound in English, is everywhere. It appears in many different words and contexts, no matter the time frame we're talking about. The key point here is that the schwa is a constant presence in our pronunciation, making speech more natural and fluent. Now, let's talk about stressing one syllable. Even though the schwa sounds very relaxed and neutral in many words, we need to emphasize one particular syllable to give the word its correct rhythm and meaning. This is where word stress comes into play. When we focus on stressing one syllable, it helps our listener understand which part of the word is most important. This is especially crucial because the placement of stress can change the meaning of a word or make our speech clearer and more natural. So, in summary, remember that the schwa is everywhere, filling in those unstressed syllables, and that stressing one syllable is essential for correct pronunciation and communication. This balance between the neutral schwa and emphasized syllables is a fundamental part of mastering English pronunciation. Let's take a closer look at how stress changes the meaning of words. On this slide, you'll notice the word record and how it can function as both a verb and a noun depending on where we place the emphasis. When we say record with the stress on the second syllable, it's a verb, meaning to capture or store information. But if we emphasize the first syllable, record, it becomes a noun, referring to the thing that has been recorded or a document. The same pattern applies to present. As a verb, present with stress on the second syllable, it means to show or display. As a noun, present with stress on the first syllable, it refers to a gift or the current moment. This concept is really important because homographs like these have the same spelling but different meanings, and that change in stress is what makes each meaning clear. Understanding this can help us communicate more effectively, especially in spoken language where tone and emphasis are key. So, always pay attention to where the stress falls. That's what guides the meaning and helps avoid confusion. Let's take a closer look at some common words that can trip us up with their endings. Words like gifts, filmed, desks, and health all have tricky endings that we need to pay attention to. The key here is to not drop those endings, because they carry important sounds and meanings. Now, an important point to remember is that consonant clusters, those groups of consonants that appear together, can be especially challenging when moving between sounds. They often require a bit of practice to say smoothly and clearly. When we move between sounds, especially with consonant clusters, it's essential to be mindful of how we transition from one sound to the next. Doing this smoothly helps our speech sound natural and keeps the listener engaged. So, the main takeaway is to focus on maintaining those endings and practicing transitions between sounds. This will improve clarity and help us communicate more effectively, especially when dealing with words that have complex consonant combinations. All right, let's take a closer look at past tense endings, specifically the ed ending. When we see words like wanted or needed, we're talking about actions that happened in the past. The ed ending is added to the base form of the verb to show this. For example, help becomes helped, and look becomes looked. This is a simple way to turn present verbs into past tense, making our sentences clear about when things happened. And it's important to remember that most regular verbs follow this rule, so adding ed is a common way to express past actions. In the context of our overall theme, mastering these endings helps us communicate time clearly and accurately in English. It's a fundamental step in becoming more fluent and precise in describing past events. All right, now we're at the final tip, and it's really about putting everything into action. First, find a speaking model. Look for someone whose style you admire, or even better, find a model who is an effective communicator in your field. Observing how they speak, their packing, gestures, and tone can give you a great template to emulate. Next, record yourself and listen back. This step might feel a bit uncomfortable at first, but it's incredibly valuable. Hearing your own voice helps you catch those little habits or quirks that might distract your audience, and it shows you where you can improve. Then, use human voices to learn. It's much easier to connect with authentic, natural speech than with robotic or overly rehearsed delivery. So, practice with real voices, whether it's recordings of real people or your own. This helps you develop a more genuine and engaging presenting style. Remember, these final tips are about making your presentation memorable and impactful. Finding a good model, recording yourself, and listening back are practical ways to refine your delivery and build confidence. Keep practicing, and you'll see your presentation skills improve significantly.